everybody. Welcome to this very special edition of Quarantini Time. I've got a bunch of friends that wanted to join me tonight to celebrate the end of the election 2020. Welcome, everybody. Let's go through and just introduce yourselves. And since this is Quarantini Time, let me know what you're drinking. I'm going to start on my screen. I've got Donovan up at my top left. Welcome, Donovan. Let me know what you're drinking tonight.
Thank you for having me, Laura. I am drinking Prosecco and cranberry juice because, I don't want to come out of COVID with a UTI possibly. So we're going to prevent that. This is a preventative measure. Biden-Harris 2020.
Thank you for having props. You know exactly what you're doing here, Donovan. Michael Paytosh is here tonight. Welcome,
Hello.
Paytosh. I don't think I've ever called you Michael. What are you drinking tonight, Paytosh?
We're gonna start off with this Unibrow Terrible 10.5% Belgian quad. Then if that doesn't carry us through, I've got a bottle of champagne on the side here. I'll do Bellinis later.
And all the way from Hawaii, we have Mr. John Nauf. What are you drinking today, John?
Today I'm drinking right now I'm drinking a Diet A&W root beer that was aged in vanilla. I have to drive into town to celebrate. But go Steelers, right? 7-0.
Okay,
yes!
You're cut off now. And then we've got Jason Christensen, aka Junior, coming to us from the blue wave state of Arizona.
Blue wave.
Yes, ma'am.
Junior, what are you drinking tonight?
Oh, I am drinking an ice cold Miller Lite.
And then we've got Josh Massaro and Rebecca Vega joining us from their theater. What are you folks drinking tonight?
Well, I too am drinking a Prosecco, Donovan.
And I am drinking ginger ale, but I put it in a wine glass, so it's fancy. Fancy ginger ale.
All right, and last but not least is the co-creator of Quarantini Time, Lori Carranza. Lori, what are you drinking tonight?
Hello. I just popped open a Yumberry Wild Basin boozy sparkling water.
I don't even know what that is, but
it's like a White Claw, except tastes way better.
Obviously, as everybody knows, we do have a new president and vice president-elect in this wonderful country. That is now wonderful once again. How's everybody feeling? What was the first emotion that came over you when it was announced this morning?
I felt really anxious up until this morning, honestly. But when we saw it, I was just getting up with my wife, Karen, and we were both, I looked at my phone. It said, that he'd been called, and then shared it with Karen. And my heart has been full for the entire day. And don't get me wrong, I think we still have a couple anxious months before Inauguration Day, but I'm hopeful for the future for the first time in a long time.
I was just going to say, since it wasn't called on Tuesday, and this has been unfortunately prolonged so long with trying to figure out, it was a full victory, but I don't feel like as excited if it was announced on Tuesday. Then I would have been like, oh my God, we're popping bottles, this, that, and the other. We're going to run in the front yard and do cartwheels, that type of thing. It's still really exciting, but now it's more of having time to really kind of think about what would have happened if he was not chosen.
It's definitely been an emotional roller coaster. Has anybody here been getting sleep or losing sleep? I know I've lost sleep.
We've been going to sleep to the news and waking up to the news. And it's not that you thought it was going to change, but I just was I was worried that something crazy was going to happen. And
It's still May.
Right. I think it's just been an emotional roller coaster for everybody. And that was one of the more difficult pieces. So I think when I first found out this morning, it was kind of disbelief. And then I've been crying off and on all day. That emotional release of feeling like, oh my gosh, we can actually move forward and try to do some good out of this, and all the work that's left to do. And how do we win those runoff seats in Georgia now? I just keep thinking about the Senate. And if we can't take control, then it's just going to be like when Obama was president, and we keep trying to get stuff done and we keep getting roadblock. And how do we work together, and knowing that this is only the beginning, that this is a step in the right direction, but we still have so far to go to try and bring a lot of those visions and inequalities and injustices to the forefront and actually do something.
The Senate right now is tied 48-48. And so with those two races they're not being decided until January 5th. So we won't know how the Senate is or what the future holds for us there. There's one race in North Carolina that's also too close to call right now. That's the deciding race. So not only do we have a president who can make complete sentences and actually makes sense and puts a smile back on your face and sounds presidential. We also have our first woman vice president, who is not only a woman, she is an African American woman. She is a South Asian woman. When I told my 4-year-old about this today, I said, see, you can be anything you want to be. And she said, I can even be president. And I said, hell yes, you can.
Hey,
So,
Lila being a running mate.
oh my gosh, Remy Glorso-McCabe, Lila Carranza presidential ticket.
Please and thank you.
In year 2052. Let's just put that out there right now. How did you feel about that? I mean, we not only have our first woman, but our first woman of color in a very powerful office.
About time. It's about time we had a woman in the executive chair. Being married to a professional executive woman, she gives a different perspective on problem solving than a man would, or that anybody else would. So it's just, for me, it's just having, representation from the Black community on her side, immigrants, because she's the daughter of an immigrant, and also being a woman. It gives a whole, that when you have that kind of combination, that's going to be a good team. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, and to throw my 2 cents in on that too, like, as a scoutmaster for a girls Scouts BSA troop, having that strong positive role model for my girls to look up to is huge. So to see, them have someone they can look up to and show that it can be done, inspires them and inspires me. So I think this is long overdue, and I am very hopeful for what it can bring in the future.
Junior, you're riding that blue wave down there just like we are in Colorado. What do you think about new Senator Kelly?
I love the guy. I mean, he's got to be better than the previous senator we had down here. So, and it's exciting that he is replacing Martha McSally, who had John McCain's seat. It's pretty cool. I like it.
Everybody, John's got to bounce. Thanks for joining us, John.
Hey, guys. Aloha, Johnny.
What's the feeling like down there?
Oh, it's pretty mixed. I mean, there's a lot of Trump flags flying around here. So, it'll always be that way.
Everybody knows that the first 100 days are the most important in any presidential career. You get the most done in the first 100 days. What is the first thing you want to see done in those first 100 days?
Well, I mean, obviously he needs to get COVID under control. I mean, that's probably
I thought you were going to say he needs to get COVID, Lori. And I was like,
oh, please no.
Oh, that's right.
Somebody else got that already.
But I'm really excited to see a big emphasis on climate change, and let's give some credit back to scientists. Let's move forward in that regard.
Josh, this whole thing was your idea and you haven't spoken once. What would you like to see happen in the first 100 days?
More Zoom calls with alcohol.
Well, hopefully if the COVID gets under control, we no longer have to do this on Zoom calls.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen in the first 100 days or probably even the first year, unfortunately. It would be lovely.
All right, everybody. Some more hopes and dreams. Who do you want to see on the cabinet?
I want Bernie.
Yes.
As anything, please and thank you.
I'd like to see Stacey Abrams either get something in the administration or take over the DNC. Incredible leader, incredible organizer. What she did in Georgia and the team with her was just amazing. I also think Pete Buttigieg would make a pretty awesome Secretary of State. Just, he already has the diplomacy. That'd be cool. I basically, when I would watch the Democratic debates, with the exception of a few, I'm like, well, there's your cabinet. There you go. I mean, they were basically all saying the same thing. It was just vying for who gets to do it. So
I basically think every single name that's listed here in my background will have some sort of role in this administration.
it's a good list.
As we're all celebrating, we know we still have a long road up until January 20th. What are some of the fears that's going to happen in the next few months?
I'm mostly worried about him just going on a tirade trying to do as much damage as he can before he leaves. He's like a bad renter.
Said he was going to upper deck in the Lincoln Room.
I wish my kids were here. They were so excited when they found out. They've been asking every day when they wake up, like, do we have a new, did Joe Biden win?
What about your girls, Junior?
I honestly didn't really even want to talk about this with them because our current president is such an embarrassment. I don't even talk to him about it, to be honest. I just kind of hope that it just goes away and they never ask.
I think we've all been spending the last 4 years just hoping it would go away. Also, Lori, I really enjoy your shirt. I'm just going to throw that in there right now.
David, the orange man is no longer in the White House.
Because you never come to the horror part.
I don't know how to count missing ballots in. Mother.
If you say count the ballots one more time.
One more time. It says count them in, David.
Donovan, I love you.
Well, I wanted to ask all of you guys, when Trump was first elected and he just kind of started out of the gate with really, really hateful, awful shit, how did you have that conversation with them?
A couple of the conversations that we had, I don't really remember the kids coming to us with stuff, but for me, it was really important that we talked about character and how a person lives and who they are and kind of what, more of like that whole do as I say, not as I do kind of feeling, like your actions are so much louder. And may have started referring to him as the lying liar who lies.
True.
Just because I wanted them to understand, that was my biggest thing about him. I recognized where people were coming from and feeling fed up with lifelong politicians and wanting a change and wanting that difference. But I was like, he's just such a terrible person. And that was the part that I just could not get over. And so for me, making sure that they understood that about him and the things that he'd done. And we were pretty candid and open with them about, and then they'd heard other things, about how he cheated on his wives and how he'd been accused of sexual assault dozens of times. And all of those things I think are important because those are not the kinds of men that I want to raise. I want them to be empathetic. I want them to be understanding. I want them to see women and people of color as allies and as humans before they see them as anything else, and trying to help bridge some of those conversations. They do not care for Trump, and I'm sure that is strongly to do with our influence, but I hope that it's helping to inform them on how not to be, and now having a leader that we can actually say, okay, some of his policies we may not agree with them, but when it comes down to character and who he is as a person and who he cares about, and like I feel like you can emulate these qualities of this person. I don't feel like I have to oh my God, turn off the TV, don't listen to anything he says, to poison your ears. And I did use this as a huge opportunity with my nieces and nephews because the majority of them are over the age of 18, and pushing them to vote, pushing them to research. I never told them who to vote for. I'm sure they're not idiots when they knew who I was voting for, but just getting them to care and talking to their friends. And the youth vote was huge. And I think that helps, just reaching out to one or two people that you could have had an effect on, and getting them to understand that, yeah, you're not voting for maybe right now or next year, but we're still dealing with some of the decisions that were made by administrations 20 years ago. So you're voting for future you and for your future children, and getting them to kind of understand that. Do we want to ask Sam a couple of the questions from earlier?
Yes.
Well, the first one that we were asking is, how did you feel when you saw the results this morning?
Yeah, like I mean, at first it was cool because I was like, okay, fine, I think we're starting to move on. But as Josh knows, like I'm no huge Biden fan. But what was really interesting was like after a little while of like, scrolling through Twitter and just reading everybody's reactions and seeing stuff like that, my wife was like, oh, I'm going to walk and get the mail. And I was like, okay, me too. And my youngest, who's 20, but still my youngest, was like, okay, I'll go. And so we're like all walking out as a family, and it's, like the sun's shining a little bit through the clouds. And I, was like, jumped up onto the sidewalk next to near where the mailboxes are. And I just looked out over the open space kind of by there. And I was like, he's gone. He's going to be gone. Like, and it just like, there was just this weight that I could like feel like lifting. That's kind of how I felt. It's just that like, okay, this is good.
Sorry, we forgot the important question. Sam, what are you drinking?
Well, I had a margarita earlier. This was just like leftover ice from, but I could be convinced to go get another margarita.
So one of the other questions we asked was, is there anyone that you're excited to see in the cabinet?
I was really hoping to see Warren as Senate Majority Leader. Don't know that that's quite going to happen. If any of us all have people that we know in Georgia, we need to like work to get that out as much as possible. I'm ecstatic, overjoyed that Betsy DeVos is going to be out. That's huge for me. I mean, like everybody, but like that's one that's like particularly good. I mean, somebody mentioned Doug Jones from Alabama as like Attorney General, which I think might be a good call. Like from what they said, he's a lawyer, he's a trustworthy lawyer, and I'm sure that it would at least be kind of like a reach across the aisle sort of thing because he's from Alabama. I mean, a Democrat from Alabama is just as good as a Republican from anywhere else. I mean, that might be a good choice.
Any thoughts about like AOC
well.
or Ilhan Omar in any kind of positions, or we think maybe they're too fresh in yet, not quite seasoned enough?
Maybe. I feel like they're doing good work where they're at. I love watching them hold feet to the fire.
But we did want Bernie.
I want
Oh, yeah.
Bernie for anything and everything.
I mean, there was a stage full of cabinet possibilities during the primaries.
The one I heard was like him nominating a Republican senator from another state to where that has like a Democratic governor. So the governor could appoint a Democrat to the Senate seat that he put in somebody from like a Republican senator, which would then tip things over in the Senate.
That is very
strategery.
Yes, other moves.
Yeah.
Diversify the cabinet, but throw some imbalance here over in the Senate side. Yeah, that's deep.
Did anyone else hear that Trump could resign rather than concede before January?
I don't know if that's fake news.
That's my new favorite person.
No tea, no coercion.
So another question I asked that I know, Sam, that you missed out is the first 100 days of a presidency are the time when they're able to get the most done in their presidential career. What are your hopes to see in the first 100 days?
I really liked, I mean, what I saw on Twitter, like they were saying like first day, rejoining the Paris Accord, rejoining the World Health Organization, reinstating DACA, and there was one more that I can't remember. But I mean, the stuff that he can do by executive order, which is good. And I'd like to see him get away from executive orders. I mean, I'd like to see more legislating. Without the Senate, it'll be difficult to do that. I even said to my wife, like, if he gets in there and does nothing, absolutely nothing, it'll be better than what's been happening. The speech tonight, I mean, like the inclusion in the speech tonight was amazing.
So Sam actually reminded me of something that I wanted to ask you all earlier. I know for me, and it sounds like for Sam, Joe Biden was not our first choice as a candidate. I came to terms with it soon after the primary. There were 12 people up on that stage during the Democratic primaries. Who was your first choice?
Yeah, I can answer for Sam.
Warren.
Elizabeth Warren. I cried when she conceded. I was so sad because I felt like she was the first capable woman who had plans for everything and was so articulate. And I knew she, because of her history, was going to actually do all those things that she said. She was my number one for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to see a Warren Sanders ticket.
Lori was big. You're a big Bernie guy.
You know I love Bernie. That's my dude.
So,
Sam.
I would not have been mad at Warren.
Amy! Joining us.
Hey,
From
Sam, the other
slowest
thing.
counting state.
Oh,
No kidding. I was pretty sure I could go over there at one point with Matthew's second grade class and we could pound that out in a couple hours. Like,
did you guys finish counting yet?
Yes, we did.
Oh, good.
That too is
Oh,
celebration.
So we're all just kind of hanging out, but the last question I posed to everybody was during the Democratic primaries, was Joe Biden your first choice?
Oh no, I was Mayor Pete. I love Pete.
So do you hope to see Pete in a cabinet post?
I would love to see him. I think he is just really, really smart. I think he has just such a unique collaborative background that everybody can kind of get behind. Like everybody can find something to love about Pete. So I was excited to kind of be introduced to him and learn more about him. And now I'm just excited to take a deep breath. I don't think I realized how much tension and angst that I had built up. So I'm really excited.
So during the primaries, I was an Amy Klobuchar supporter. Not
Yes.
only was she from the great state of Minnesota, she was Another one that I thought could get it done. She was a conservative Democrat, just like Joe Biden.
Well, I think the bright spot is that there's a lot of people with a bright future and great ideas. So that is, and hopefully I would like to see a little bit more middle of the road, because I think that's where we need to be right now to heal some of the massive rifts that we have in this country, and to continue to kind of get people on the, like, we can work together bus. But then I selfishly also am like a staunch person for education and the environment. So I don't care what they think about that.
So welcome, Amy. What are you drinking tonight, since this is Quarantini time?
Well, I went blue. So I have the La Marca, and yeah, I just got a little splits, and I was at an indoor soccer game with my daughter earlier, and watching the presidential speech, and Kamala on my little phone as I'm cheering on soccer. So, you know, everybody's like, why is she crying? Is she happy about the game?
Wait, I want to fill in Sam's final thought on what it was. The Muslim ban was the other thing. That was the one thing he couldn't remember.
Yes.
From the 100 days.
Yep.
All right, Amy, what would you like to see in the first 100 days of the Biden-Harris presidency?
I mean, I think my priorities are very much in line with others, with let's be serious about this pandemic for once, and everybody follow the same rules and really take it seriously, make decisions based on science, and get that under control so that we can boost small business, get everybody back to work. And then, God, I hope he starts really, really hard with the environment, because I feel like we took so many steps backwards and we just didn't have time to waste on anything. Like, we have to care about our oceans. And there's, you know, unfortunately, I feel like science in so many other areas halted because we've been so focused on the virus. So I would like to see a lot of like the environmental steps ahead and funding towards things that can combat like the plastic in the ocean and things like that. I'd like to see that funded and focused on, and for Americans to take that seriously.
One more question, Amy. Where's your husband?
Timothy.
Yes.
And guess who voted for Biden?
Shut the front door.
The
Hey,
tax
we've got
attorney?
I don't even know Timothy, and I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Over the course of the campaigns and the election, what has been your favorite single word?
I think my favorite word is American, and what that means, and you know, the various sides that tried to define it. I don't think you can define what an American is, because we're all individually, we bring different aspects to that thought. And I think that, you know, when President Biden says he's going to be an American president, he means inclusively, which is something we haven't seen in 4 years. The word American is not a bad word anymore.
Yeah. On that note, I made an effort and I went to Walmart today and bought this flag. I have never put a flag up on my house ever. And today I was inclined to do so.
So during the course of the campaign in this election, what has been your least favorite word said by any candidate, or phrase, if you will?
Too close to call.
Make America great again.
I know.
I really struggled with people who didn't understand what the Black Lives Matter movement was trying to convey, you know, not trying to be divisive, but trying to help just bring awareness to a problem. And
Yeah, like the whole radical left thing. You know, it's anything left of center is seen as radical, and we're not. We just want, you know, the same stuff for everybody. That's not radical. That's just decent, wanting to take care of everybody. That's not a bad thing.
Laura, I have my word. Snowflake.
Oh God. It's
Wrong
been fun
side.
to like reverse all those though, isn't it?
There he is. Hello.
hey, Tim!
All right, well, I'm going to take it back to Quarantini, because this is Quarantini time. Who
Okay.
would you least like to be stuck in a stay-at-home quarantine with, not including Donald Trump, because that has been said on every single Quarantini time?
Any of his
My
kids?
Uncle.
Mitch.
No. Oh, Mitch. Like,
Kid Rock.
Mitch, yes.
Bitch. Fuck that.
This is just
Ted
my all-time
Nugent.
favorite question on the list. What is your favorite curse word?
The puppy.
Fuck.
Fuck.
yeah.
Hey, Jenna. I second what I said the first time in Quarantini Time, but I will not say it in front of Jenna. I'm sorry, I can't do it. It's twat waffle.
She took my answer, by the way.
That was on my bingo. That was on my bingo.
What sound or noise from the past year do you love?
Silence.
Quiet. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
What sound or noise besides Donald Trump's voice from the past year do you hate?
This kind of goes back to the words that you asked for, and it's not necessarily from the campaign, but just the phrase social distancing I feel is so inelegant, and it's not precise, and it's just weird, and I really don't like that phrase.
My son's second grade teacher uses respectful space. That's a better one.
I don't really have a noise. Well, actually, I do, but a phrase. Anything that comes or came out of Trump's mouth, fake news, anything like that.
So I'm going to wrap this up here tonight. And I just want your closing thoughts, your closing feelings, how you feel about the future, just any closing thoughts you might have to share.
Hopeful with knowing that there's still a lot of work to do, but enjoying this win today.
I was gonna share, like, I texted Rebecca earlier, and just kind of as you're sorting through emotions, like right after it was announced, I kept thinking of my son, and I'm so excited for him. You know, he's 8, and I don't have to explain to him anymore why I have to keep muting the president or explaining what he says, or that's not what really people think, and that's not the way we treat people. And I don't have to do that anymore. Like, my parenting just got like cut in half. He has an American leader to look up to, as you know, I feel like growing up, you know, some of the presidents were wonderful, some of them are not so wonderful, depending on, you know, your perspective. But like, you know, it was just always, there was an eloquence and there was a stature and there was a dignity to the office. And all of a sudden that's back. And I'm so excited for my kids, but my son especially, to have a male that is powerful, that is respectful, that fights for, you know, all people, not just himself, and to start that rhetoric. And so I'm jazzed, just because I'm a parent and I want to leave this world a better place. And the way I do that is through my kids. And it was looking bleak. So
I like what Biden says is like super cliche, but when he's like, they're not red states or blue states, it's the United States. It's super cliche, but like, oh my God, like at least he's freaking trying. Like, at least he's hitting that conciliatory note instead of just like everybody else but me and my family, you know. So right. I'm hopeful. I'm Biden wasn't my choice. Kamala wasn't my choice, but they seem to be starting off really well. The inclusion in Biden's speech, like about, like, he mentioned transgender, he mentioned like he went through like all these, like,
Americans,
LGBTQ, like all this stuff, and then he because my daughter even was like, he didn't say black people, and then he was like, and the black community has like pulled us out through all this stuff, and I was like, wow, this guy is just knocking it out of the park as far as inclusivity, you know, all the things that matter to me, he like really hit.
This world needs to be a kinder place, and we have to kind of lead as example, to be kind to one another, to make this world a better place.
I actually am excited that something like this brought all of these people together who have never met.
Yeah.
In this little quorum.
I liked what Biden said tonight in his speech when he said, we have to lead not by the example of our power, but by the power of our example.
He has great speechwriters.
Yes.
Thank God. And he follows his notes.
That's hard, right? Read the prompter.
We're all so traumatized.
We are.
It has been 4 straight up years of trauma, and we've got 4 full of hope. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight on Quarantini Time. Seriously, thank you for coming. It has been so much fun to hang out and celebrate this night.
Cheers.
Yay.
Thank you, everybody.
Bless America.
Woo! All right.
My wife is crawling around on the floor. Ah!